what are you gonna do another future? Are you gonna does this change anything for you? Listen, this is Diceshaker life.
I bet my life I'm a dice shaker. Electric lights on a skyscraper.
Welcome to Diceshaker Podcast. My name is Jordan Brown. I am the host of the Diceshaker Podcast. With me, as always, the man behind the scenes, Tyler Hartley. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Jordan. This is a somber one.
Listen, it is Thursday after the Super Bowl, whatever. It has been 3 or 4 days since the game ended. The body is now cold. We have had some time to examine some things, collect our thoughts. Look, the future of the year is dead. The Chiefs are dead. I thought we were going to come in here and film this episode as a celebration of being consistently right, basically for 5 straight months. And that's not what happened. That's not what happened. Everybody knows the Chiefs lost 40-22. Realistically, was way worse than that. It was 34-0 at one point in time before some garbage time touchdowns. It really feels. I just want on a personal level. We're going to talk me. Then we're going to talk the game. Then we're going to talk sort of big picture what that game meant, because it was a consequential Super Bowl. So for me personally, I imagine this is what like the 2007 Patriots had to kind of feel like. That was the team that went 18-1, lost in the Super Bowl.
Absolutely.
Because like I had a great year betting the NFL. Like truly was pretty much right about everything.
You mean like, that's right. We're talking about you.
Yeah, we're talking about me.
So that's so
yeah,
funny.
we're starting
I
with the
thought
most
you were
important
related
thing.
to the Chiefs to the Patriots here, which is
No,
also
we're talking about me right now.
I understand.
We're talking about me right now.
Yeah.
I went 60%. I, week after week after week after week, felt like I knew everything that was going on in the league and had my thumb on the pulse of the league. And that carried over into my future bet. I said the Chiefs were going to win the Super Bowl in August. The Chiefs were going to win the Super Bowl in September, October, November, December. Right up until about halfway, or less than halfway, I guess, through that game, I thought the Chiefs were going to win the Super Bowl. Obviously, they didn't win the Super Bowl. So that, to me, has got to feel like how the 2007 Patriots felt, where it's like, yeah, you lost the last game, and so that's going to be like the main takeaway into the offseason and what people remember. But then like there had to be guys on that team being like, well, we won like 18 straight before that. Like nobody cares. And that's kind of how it is, man. That's what listen, nobody's going to care. Right? Next year we'll come out, we'll talk about it again. We'll bring it up. But like the 60% season doesn't carry as much weight right now because I lost the Super Bowl and I got blown out in the Super Bowl. Like the Chiefs never had a shot in that game.
Didn't even show up, man.
Right. And that's so if we want to, I want to get into the game. So, look, I'll say this, and this is gonna sound crazy. People think I'm doing a character a bit or whatever. I stand by everything I said. Like, I don't think I got anything wrong leading up into that game because I always said there was a chance. I said even on the last episode we did, there was a chance for the Eagles to win the game. But they were going to need to play perfectly.
We've said all year. You said that if the Lions, if the Eagles, whoever's going to beat them has to play the perfect game.
Correct, and then also not have the Chiefs play the perfect game. And I think those are the two things that we saw happen in that game, where the Eagles played that game exactly how they needed to do it, in terms of being able to run the ball. Getting obviously the D-line getting after Mahomes was the biggest story in the game. That is a generational ass kicking by that defensive line against that offensive line, and maybe one that we should have saw. I knew that defensive line was going to get pressure. I think the issue that happened for the Chiefs, and we'll talk about kind of the ways that this manifested, but when it was clear that they were going to be at a personnel disadvantage on both sides. So their offensive line was getting killed by the Eagles' defensive line, and they could not generate any pass rush on the Eagles without blitzing. So their defensive line was getting smoked as well. When that became the case, what the Chiefs do in that scenario is they turn around and look at 15 and go, hey, man, this one's going to have to be you today. We can't do anything with these guys. Man-to-man, like they are bigger, they are stronger, they are faster, they are potentially better coached. We're going to need you to be Superman. And for perhaps the first time in his career, I would say, yeah, actually definitely the first time in his career, Pat Mahomes couldn't do it. He played bad when his team needed him to be the man.
Sure.
And that people will look back at like the people are making the comparisons between the Bucks Chiefs Super Bowl and this past one that happened, because very similar situation that the Chiefs got their ass beat, lost the game 38-9, and it was pass rush city all night long. But if you go back and watch Mahomes in that game, Mahomes was under shockingly, more pressure than he was on under the Eagles, and he was still able to make stuff happen, right? He threw the touchdown like horizontal to the ground. Like, he played great in that game. And then you go back. So the moment where everything kind of flipped, the Eagles were down, or the Chiefs were down 10-0. So the Eagles had scored a touchdown. The Chiefs had punted. Eagles came back down the field. They threw the pick, the bad Jalen Hurts pick. So they great blitz by Spags, schemed it up, got in Jalen Hurts' face with an A-gap pressure. He was surprised by it, threw it up into the air for grabs, and they come down with the pick. Very classic Chiefs play, and just right along the type of thing where if you're an Eagles bettor or you're an Eagles fan at that moment, you're like, that's the kind of thing that can't happen. That's the kind of thing that gets you beat by the Chiefs. Chiefs get the ball. They get a stop again. Eagles kick a field goal, 10-0. The Chiefs then get the ball back inside their own 5 or 6. It is now 10-0. And at that moment, I think there's probably about 5 or 6 minutes left in the second quarter, maybe more. But that was the moment where I was like, okay, this is where it turns. They're down 10-0. They haven't played well. Mahomes is going to take them down the field. They're going to get 3 or they're going to get 7. They're going to be within 1 score. They're going to keep it close going into half, and it's going to be oh my God, they've played like shit, and they're within 1 score. Here comes the Chiefs. Here comes Mahomes. Instead, Mahomes throws a terrible pick. Yeah. The brutal interception to Cooper DeJean, who takes it back to the house. And I went back, and I'm not gonna get into like the minute details of how that play happened because nobody cares. But I went back and watched like the coach's film, like the all 22 of it. He never saw Cooper. He just straight up didn't see him, and that's the type of play in that type of moment that like the great quarterbacks don't make.
Yeah, true.
They just don't not see the safety. And then and throw it right to him, and then it ends. And so now it's 17-0. And even at that moment, I was like, all right, that was the first time where I was like, oh, that's bad. Mm-hmm. That's bad stuff. Now the Chiefs have to score before the half. They're down 3 scores. They must score before the half. And then Mahomes throws another pick. 2 straight pass attempts. So back-to-back, not back-to-back plays because they ran it a couple times, but back-to-back pass attempts, Mahomes throws egregious interceptions. One of them goes back to the house for a pick. The other one is on like his own like second.
I was just
whatever.
Essentially,
right.
Yeah.
Brutal turnovers that you cannot have that will get you beat, like Jared Goff level of like that's how you lose games type interceptions. And it happened by the best quarterback of his generation in a Super Bowl, and that's just something like we'll get into the bigger picture stuff later, but like the Patriots fans and like the Brady fans, that's the kind of thing they'll beat Mahomes over the head with forever, because Brady never did anything like that. Never had that kind of a performance in that big of a game, in that kind of a spot when your team was looking at you to go win it. Never happened. So that's kind of how that happens then. So it ends up being 24-0 at that point at the half. The Chiefs are living on the edge. They can't get anything going, right? Like that first drive out of the second half, they got the ball. That was where I was like, all right, if they score there, they get a turn. Like 24-0 to me was still possible. And the Chiefs come out in the second half, and they just didn't have any answers. And I think it's a reflection of Kelce played terrible. Mahomes was bad. We're going to start in order. The offensive line and the defensive line got their ass beat. Played bad, whatever. I just think they're like truly outmatched in terms of like what the Eagles have the best offensive line in football and the best defensive line in football. And that's short of having the best quarterback, that's what you want to have. And so they were able to execute in that way. And then you look at Mahomes didn't play well. And then Kelce, who's supposed to be, when Mahomes doesn't have, like, that's Kelce's whole role in that offense, is he's the easy button for Mahomes. When Mahomes doesn't have it, and when shit's breaking down, they have their, right, the whole thing between them is, they have this, like, telepathic connection. They've been together for so long. They've been doing it for so long. They don't even run the play that's called in the huddle. They just both know what each other's going to do when they need to do it in the moment to create something to happen, right? Like, It's been talked about. Kelce often will run routes and stuff that's not in the call. He just does it on his own, and Mahomes is so used to it that he knows what he's going to do before he does it, and then that's how they're able to succeed so well, because they're basically drawing it up in the dirt. That didn't happen. That didn't work. Kelce wasn't there for him. And then at that point, they have truly nothing left. They can't get a stop on the other end. They're losing trenches on both sides, and the superheroes couldn't be superheroes, and that's how you lose the game.
Yep.
That's how you lose the game. And they said it after the game that, the Chiefs played their worst game of the year in the Super Bowl. And I think some people are acting as though that's like it was a fluke. Like, if we played this game 10 times, the Chiefs would have won 9 of them. And maybe they would have. But it is, for all the credit we gave the Chiefs, I gave the Chiefs heading into the game. Big reason behind it was that they seemed to be the team where that type of a performance in that moment was not possible.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it was. And it happened. And so now we have to sort of evaluate that and what that means. And that's why, not to get earnest here or anything, we this is a fun show, a fun podcast. We laugh about this stuff. But just like the reason why I love football and why the game means so much to me and why I think it resonates with people in a way that other sports don't is football is about ultimately who has it when you have to have it, right? You look at all the other sports, you look at basketball, hockey, whatever, is like they play 7-game series, right? And so if you don't have it tonight, well, maybe you'll have it tomorrow. And that's why game 7s in like the NBA and the NHL and stuff are so electric, because it's okay, who's got it when you must have it? There is no tomorrow. There is no second chances. Who's got it tonight? And the Chiefs' ultimate currency, the reason why they're so highly regarded as one of these great teams of all time, is because they always have it when they need to have it. And that night they didn't. And now that changes. I mean, just that's, some Super Bowls are not memorable or historic Super Bowl. They don't have historical implications. Nobody cared when the Steelers beat the Cardinals. The Steelers had already won 1 million Super Bowls. That Cardinals team was not a memorable team. And it was, there's a couple, the James Harrison interception in that game, but there's some play, but like that didn't change anything about the NFL. This type of Super Bowl 42, when the Pats lost to the Giants and the perfect season goes off, Brady's Super Bowl, like those are consequential Super Bowls where it's like a sliding doors moment where it's like, if this happened, then this is the way the NFL would have gone. But now this happens, so now this is the way the NFL is going to go. And so had the Chiefs won that game, they're obviously the three-peat. That is easily, just by the numbers, the greatest run in the history of the NFL, that 3-year stretch. And you could probably extend it. They've made 5 out of the last 6 Super Bowls. They won they would have won 4 out of those.
Yeah.
And Mahomes would be 4-1 in Super Bowls and hot on Brady's ass, right? Brady's 7-2 all time. And so 7-2. He lost to the Giants. 7-3 because he lost the Eagles. Lost the Giants twice and lost the Eagles. So 7-3. So even 7-3, Mahomes would have been 4-1, hot on his trail, right? Like statistically speaking, like he's probably going to get there. Now Mahomes is 3-2. He's got 2 blowouts on his resume in the Super Bowl. One against Brady, and now he needs to win 4 he needs to make the Super Bowl 5 more times and win 4 of them just to tie Brady's record. That seems tough.
Yeah. Definitely
Seems you'd have to bet against that, right? Like just and like people are overreacting, saying like, wow, this is it, they're done, like they're never getting back to the Super Bowl. They'll play more. Patrick Mahomes will play more Super Bowls. The rest of the Chiefs I don't know about. Patrick Mahomes will play more Super Bowls. So that really changed. And like I said, like if you're a Brady fan, if you're a Patriots fan, like you now, like it went from what was going to be a Jack Nicklaus, Tiger Woods situation where Tom Brady has more championships, but nobody's really arguing that Mahomes isn't better, right? Like we know what we're looking at when we see this, right? It would be like one of those where it's like, yeah, the numbers say this guy's better, but like everything that we're seeing says like that's the dude. Mahomes is the dude. And now you can't make that argument anymore. And now it's become more of a Michael Jordan LeBron situation where even if LeBron/Mahomes were able to catch Michael Jordan/Tom Brady in championships, maybe even pass him, there would still be those people who could argue, yeah, but what about the 2011 finals where LeBron didn't show up? What about the Super Bowl 59 where Mahomes got his ass beat in front of the whole world, right? Like there will always be that of like, that couldn't have happened to my guy. Yeah. That couldn't happen to Michael Jordan. That couldn't happen to Tom Brady, let alone, and it's still an analogous thing because like then people make the argument of like, well, Jordan didn't make the finals in all these years, and you can do it with Tom too. Tom didn't make the Super Bowl in all these years. Mahomes makes it all the time. He just got his ass beat in a couple of, and they said it doesn't matter. Like what you do on the biggest stage matters. And so we went from that place to now we're over here.
I agree. It does totally change the conversation of what we're talking about. Yeah,
it changes. It 100% changes the context
whether it's legitimate or not. Yeah, that people are going to talk about that now. Absolutely, that's what people are going to remember.
You can no longer say that the only difference between Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes is time.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Right? Because that would have been that was kind of the argument heading into the game, and that definitely would have been the argument had they won. Would be the only difference is Tom played forever. Mahomes hadn't played that long. It's just a matter of time. It's again, Jack Nicklaus, Tiger Woods. That was the argument they made. Obviously, Tiger didn't catch him for, listen, Mahomes starts driving cars off of cliffs and stuff like that, and that would change the argument.
Yeah.
That's his dad. His dad does that though.
That
was a good joke. That was a good joke.
Is that an insight? I thought you were talking Tiger Woods getting in a car
accident. No. Pat Mahomes Sr.'s got like 4 or 5 DUIs. Oh, that guy stays getting arrested.
Didn't know he was the man like that.
Yeah, he stays getting arrested. He's actually gonna fight John Rocker in a sanctioned boxing fight
because he needs money. Yeah.
It seems that way.
Yeah,
seems that way.
Of course.
I don't know. He played Major League Baseball, so I don't know how he'd be broke now, but probably not
driving on fucking cars, great DUIs.
Yeah, probably not great money management there. So that would have been, and now you can no longer make that argument. And listen, the Chiefs now, so we'll do the big picture stuff. So, and again, we will talk about the Eagles, I promise. It's just the Chiefs are more interesting because of the history and what it meant. So the Chiefs now must again reevaluate. They're in a very similar spot to where they were after 2019 when they got their ass beat, or in 2020. By the Bucs. So what happened in that offseason was when they kind of completely started to shift what their priorities were, and they understood like, okay, we can't just have Tyreek Hill and Kelsey and try to win every game 42-35. And that's when they traded for Orlando Brown to be the left tackle. They signed Joe Thuney in free agency. They drafted Creed Humphreys at center, and they drafted Trey Smith at guard. So in one offseason, they went from having no good offensive linemen to having 4 of them. Very hard to do. One of the things that propelled them to this run that they've been on is they were able to not only rebuild their offensive line, but build a very good offensive line in an offseason. Very hard to do. But then this is something that you consistently run into team building wise when you have a great quarterback who's making all this money. Orlando Brown's not there anymore. He plays in Cincinnati. Why? They couldn't pay him. Didn't have the money for it. Joe Thuney's still there, but he had to play left tackle instead of left guard because they didn't have a left tackle because Orlando Brown's playing in Cincinnati. So now you don't have your great left guard. You have an okay left tackle. And he did a great job for most of the year. Got his ass beat in this game. Mm-hmm. But he's not a tackle. He's supposed to be playing on the inside. Creed Humphrey, still the best center in football. They're going to pay him. In fact, they already have paid him. One of my favorite all-time. He played at Oklahoma. One of my favorite all-time players. He's the best center in football. He was the best center. He's legitimately probably a Hall of Fame player at this point. So he's not going anywhere. He will be the anchor of their offensive line for the rest of his career. 7 years old, he had a center coach. That's one of my favorite things about Creed Humphrey.
Yeah, was he like 6 feet tall at 7 years old too? Was he a big guy?
No. Well, like, yeah, he's like a big, like little, but a center coach. He's like, no, at 7 years old, he was like, no, I play center. That's sick.
Yeah, I mean, that's his parents obviously just being like, you're going to be a center.
Right, but then he just got grown up being like, yeah, I just want to, and like he was like a wrestler. He's just like, I just like mauling people. He calls them taking them to the salt mines.
Yeah, he's pumped with that. Yeah, for sure.
It's just a wonderful Oklahoma boy. Love him to death. Trey Smith, the guy they drafted right next to him to play at right guard that same year. Well, Trey Smith's about to become the highest paid guard in football because he's a free agent this year, and the Chiefs can't afford to pay him, so he's going to walk. So now they're once again in the situation where have a couple of pieces on the offensive line, but they have to rebuild it again. Mm-hmm. And then you look otherwise, and it's like, okay, well, we got rid of Tyreek Hill. Definitely a good decision. I mean, listen, you went to Super Bowl, so definitely a good decision. And Tyreek is like, he's falling out of favor in Miami right now. Like, I don't think Tyreek Hill would have necessarily helped in that game, But there isn't a lot of high end skills, right? That's why they need that easy button, and that's supposed to be Kelsey. But Kelsey's a little over the hill now. It probably got some other priorities going on in his life, and that's why he wasn't as good this year. He was good in spots, he was good in games, but he wasn't dominant throughout the year. And when they needed him in the Super Bowl, he wasn't there. He played terrible in that game. Yep. Like, I've never seen, and like that's the thing too.
Barely
saw him in that game. Is like it basically the first time I've ever seen. And maybe this is like maybe this is like they were so right. My argument all year was like they've transcended like all the regular season bullshit, and like they just don't have to care about these games. Maybe that got too far because like that's the only team I've ever seen come out flat in a Super Bowl.
Yes,
like it's like they didn't realize like no, this is the one, guys. This is the Super Bowl. This is the one. You have to try this.
Felt that way.
Felt that way. So and Kelsey definitely like he was getting beat out his stance, played terrible in that game, and that's why they brought in Dodger Hopkins because we need easy buttons. We need shit can't be so hard all the time. It's either like our offensive line dominates, that's great, but when that's not happening, now it becomes very hard to move the ball for them. Right? They need Pat to be a hero, and so they need to figure out a way now. One, they have to rebuild that offensive line. And they need to get Pat Mahomes easier options. because it's not going to be Kelsey anymore. Like, he can maybe, listen, I don't know if Kelsey's going to retire. They said they're giving him a month to figure it out. I think he comes back just because, like, you can't go out like that. You know? Like, I honestly think, like, his brother, like, Jason Kelsey would probably talk and be like, listen, man, like, you can't go out like a bitch like that. Like, playing terrible in front of the whole world and losing by 1 million. Like, you have to go try to play another year. And so I think he comes back. But they are going to need more help. And you know, Rashee Rice was hurt. He'll be back next year. Xavier Worthy, like, those guys are pieces for sure. But they're little guys.
Yeah.
They're not the easy button. They need the easy button. They need the true X receiver. They need maybe another tight end. They need something to create more offense for themselves. And so how they attack that this offseason will be very interesting. And they are now into phase, like, the third version of this team, right? And they're going to and this is where like with the Patriots, and it happens, like, yeah, they went 10 years without winning a Super Bowl, right? Like, whereas, like, Mahomes, it's like, okay, they had version 1 of the team. That won a Super Bowl and lost a Super Bowl version 1 of the team. Won in 2019, lost in 2020. Okay, version 2. Bang. Now we have an offensive line, and we have a great defense, and fuck the skill positions. We don't need them. Kelsey and Mahomes will make up for that. 2 more Super Bowls that way. Okay, can't do that anymore. Now that's done. We can't do that anymore. The offensive line, we can't afford them. Kelsey's kind of finished now. So now we need version 3. And so it's seeing how they, and credit to them, like, they did it once, so you can, if you want to say, yeah, they're going to do it again, okay, fine. But this is what it looks like in the NFL. This is why they call it the not for long league, because you could set yourself up, even if you have Mahomes, it's still only like a 3 or 4 year window. Yeah, because guys get older and guys need contracts and guys get hurt and all that stuff. So what they do this offseason to rebuild that and how to do that is I think maybe next week we're going to do, like, top 5 teams to watch in the offseason in terms of how they do it. They're definitely on that list because what they do now is going to be very interesting, right? It seems like Reed's coming back. It seems like Kelsey's coming back. They're going to lose free agents. Nobody's getting any cheaper. So now, like, how do they manage the draft? What are they doing at left tackle? How are they going to do that? So that's the watch with the Chiefs, and it'll be very interesting because now, like I said, had they won that game, then they go, yeah, okay, we need. Basically, I think if they had won that game, they would have just been like, yeah, I don't know, like, I think Kelsey retires, maybe Reed retires, like, and then the next version of the team would have been kind of whatever they could make it. Now it's like, oh, you have to do very specific things if you want to win.
Yeah,
want to win again. So that's the Chiefs. That's what they're looking at. Again, I stand by everything. I thought I called it right all year. I thought they were the best team. I thought everything I thought was logical. They just didn't show up in that game. And that has ramifications, right? That goes back to who's got it when you got to have it. They didn't have it. And now everything that we did before that, all that mastery that you guys had for the whatever it was, 15-2, being in control of all those games,
17 straight one-score wins,
doesn't matter.
Game wins.
Doesn't matter. Yeah. You have to now you have to rebuild the team because you didn't have it when you're supposed to have it, and now nobody cares about anything else.
Yeah,
so that's it. Now the Eagles. Congratulations to the Eagles. One of the best ass kicking, one of the biggest ass kickings in the history of the Super Bowl. A truly dominant performance for 60 minutes. Played that game exactly the way they needed to, and just a testament to, like, truly one of the model sports franchises out there, one of the most well-run organizations. Like, the reason they're able to be so successful in the way that they were. So, they're right, we talked about it. They have the best offensive line in football. They have the best defensive line in football. Well, they have the best offensive line in football because they're paying for it, right? They're paying Jordan Mailata. They're paying Lane Johnson. They're paying Mekhi Becton. Like, these are our players. Landon Dickinson's going to get paid. That's where the money is, right? And obviously, Jalen's making money, Saquon's making money. The money's all in the offense, right? It's Hurts and it's Devonta Smith. Okay, so the money's all in the offense. We're paying for the offense. Well, when you do that, how do you get? Normally, what happens there is, well, your defense is going to stink. Well, they have the best defense in football. So how'd that happen? Well, it happened because they dominated the draft, right? When you're paying for expensive players, the only way to get good players for cheap is the draft because they're on rookie contracts and you don't have to pay them that much. And when you run through that defense, right? Obviously, we'll start in the secondary. Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell, both rookies this year, both excellent players that look like they're going to be Pro Bowl, All-Pro level players for the next 10 years. Okay, that's pretty good. They have Darius Slay at the end of his deal, still giving them a little something. They have Nakobe Dean, who didn't even play in that game. He was hurt. He's on a rookie contract. He was drafted out of Georgia. And then the defensive line is just stud after stud after stud. It's Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. It's Nolan Smith and it's Josh Sweat. Josh Sweat they didn't draft, but it's still cheap guys. And then the depth, it's Montel Williams and just guy after guy after guy after guy on a cheap contract. And when you do that, when you nail the draft picks like that, that's how you end up with a super team like this. Similarly to how the Lions have done it, where they nailed the Sewell pick and the Aiden Hutchinson pick, and like that's how you build these great rosters. Is you have to draft well. And so they are in a spot now where they can just run it back again next year. I imagine, will be essentially the same team. Blaine Johnson's already said he's coming back. They're going to lose Josh Sweat in free agency. They're going to lose Zach Bond, the linebacker, in free agency. But they've got pieces to replace those guys, and that's what I'm saying, the depth. And if Jeff Lurie, or Howie Roseman, sorry, Jeff Lurie's the owner. Howie Roseman is the GM. If he can continue to nail the draft at a rate like this, and they're not going to go away. They very much will be contenders. Them and the Lions, you would have to put the Eagles at number 1 right now. I think they're the favorites to win the Super Bowl. Actually, I think the Ravens are the favorites to win the Super Bowl next year right now. But they're going to be those 1 and 2 in the NFC again coming into next year, barring any injuries. That's what we're going to be looking at. And they're going to have a chance to go back to back. Eventually, what will happen is the offense will age out, right? Those guys will lose a step. The defense will age out of their rookie contracts, and you'll need to pay them. And then you'll have to replace the offensive guys with draft guys. Mm-hmm. And the question, okay, can you nail that again? But to get to this point and to have built that roster to be so good is just something like when I contrast them to like the Titans, where it's like the Eagles had more good draft picks last year than the Titans have had in 7 or 8 years combined. Yeah. And it's just, so they are just operating at such a higher level than like the bad teams and even the good teams in the NFL. Like it is organizational excellence. They are a great owner, a great GM, and then it trickles down from there.
It was pretty evident too in that game too, because I wasn't necessarily, definitely like the bigger, stronger players, but just so much better coached too, like better prepared for that game.
That's the other aspect of that game, right? Is people think that Andy Reid was a little bit unprepared for what the Eagles were going to do. I don't put a ton of weight in that, just because 1, I believe Andy Reid's a great coach, especially offensively, and 2, it's like there's no football answer for the defensive line is getting pressure on every single play.
4-man rush, there's nothing you can do.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why the answer to the question of how do you stop great quarterback X since the beginning of time has been get pressure without blitzing.
Yeah.
It's the only way to flip the math in your favor of we have more guys in coverage than they have running routes and we're still able to get to them. And so there's just not a lot of football answers for that. And again, that's why I came back to when you're now in that situation, okay, Pat, you need to be It's a $500 million contract, Pat Mahomes. Yep. We're going to need you. This is why. This is it right here. Is games like the big games where we're outgunned. We need you to, again, flip the math back in our favor. And he couldn't do it. And so I don't necessarily put that on coaching. And then same on the other side with the Chiefs defense, obviously struggled to get stops, gave up big plays. But again, they were not going to get pressure with 4 at all. No. And so if you're not going to get pressure with 4, Jalen's going to be able to sit back there all day long, and if Jalen Hurts has time, he can hurt you. Mm-hmm. They actually did a great job against Saquon. That was Saquon's worst game of the year, probably.
Oh yeah, no, for sure.
So credit to them for that. Where like they understood they have to come in and priority 1 to stop Saquon, and they did that. The issue was they couldn't create any pass rush. So then in order to, and they're losing, right? So that's the other thing is they have to play differently because they're losing on defense, where they feel like they have to get stops, they have to get the ball back. That means they have to blitz. We saw it on the Jalen Hurts pick. Timed it up great. Nick Bolton through the A gap pick. That's exactly what they want to happen. As that went on, and the Eagles started to understand that's all they can do is blitz, then that does 2 things. Number 1, it allows the Eagles to prep for that, and it also means the Eagles know we are going to have one-on-one coverage somewhere on the outside, and that's where you see the shot to Dotson, the shot to Devonta Smith for the touchdown, that's the one that made it 24-0, was really the game killer.
Yeah.
So or was that make it 31?
No, I think it was 24 because right at the end of the half.
Yeah, I thought the touchdown to after the second pick made 24. It doesn't matter, whatever.
Maybe it was, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. But like you put them in that situation to where again for Spags on defense, it's like, yeah, well, what else am I supposed to do here? Like we can't get any. So I'm supposed to let them stand back there all day and kill us that way.
Yep.
And kill us slowly. Like at least this way we're getting the ball back fast. Because they're hitting the big, you know what I'm saying? It's like that's your strategy there on defense. Like we're either going to get the ball back quick because we got a sack, or they're going to put it in the end zone. At least then we got the ball back again. What you can't have is them go on like a 10-minute drive and kill you that way, right? And so they just didn't have a lot of answers for being that outmatched. Besides, hey, Pat, make it happen. Pat wasn't playing well, and he didn't have anybody to make it easy on him. And so that's how you get your ass beat. So that's kind of the game there. And like I said, the Eagles have now put themselves into it's Eagles. If you want to look at like who are the teams of this decade, who are the teams of the last 10 years, it's Eagles Chiefs. Right, those are right. When we look back historically on this, it'll be like, yeah, like the Niners had a couple teams, but they never got it done, and yeah, the Bills and the Ravens were always around, but they never got it done. It'll be Chiefs won a bunch, the Eagles won a bunch, and I'm like, it wouldn't shock me if they're both in the Super Bowl again next year. Yeah, obviously that you would bet against that just based on just like injuries and things like that. It's just, that's why nobody's ever done it. It's not like the NBA, right? Like where like it's very hard to go back again. So, but like it wouldn't shock me if that was the case. And yeah. So that was kind of the Super Bowl. That's one of the most consequential Super Bowls, a true inflection point in the history of the league there, and just truly one of the more shocking results. Because like I said, going into that game, I felt like there was one way for the Eagles to win, and then it all happened. Mm-hmm. And the stars aligned in that moment, and Mahomes wasn't good, and Kelsey wasn't good, and they did everything they needed to do from their standpoint to put themselves in a position to win. So that's Super Bowl 59. And listen, man, that is it's look, I think if we're looking back, it's like, I don't like to complain about the bad beats. Obviously, like this is gambling. This is what we do. But like having the no cry bet go against me early there in that night where they said Chris Jones cried. He never visibly cried on camera.
That one's up for debate.
That's
still
up for debate
forever.
And but it's not because it's a loss, and the book said it was a loss. And that is too, like, looking back, it's like that's when things started to be like, oh, this might not be my night.
True.
Listen. This is the life we live. Because people have been saying, like, how are you gonna, like, basically saying, like, after being so wrong about the Chiefs, which I don't think I was wrong about the Chiefs. I think they played bad in that game and got their ass beat, which I always said was a possibility.
Who would have thought it would have been the Super Bowl they played bad in?
Correct. Right? Yeah, and like I said,
not an excuse. And tough situation.
Not only not an excuse, it's an accusation, because it's like that. You now have to fundamentally change what you think about that organization because they laid an egg in the big game.
Yeah,
and that matters. That means something. Great teams don't do that. And so now, and that's what I'm saying, with the Chiefs now have to reevaluate everything. They have to now look at everything and go, okay, everything that we thought we had about this perfect organization and this perfect team and this well-oiled machine that's just going to keep going, all that's wrong because we've laid an egg in the big game.
Sure.
And so nothing else matters if we're not prepared to play good football in the biggest game. Truly, right? It doesn't matter how good you are. If you're same with the other way, right? If it went the other way and saying the Eagles got Hurts his 3 turnovers and like it goes the other way and the Eagles get their ass beat in that game, they would be in the same situation going, all right, all that cool shit we thought about, we'll dominate the draft and build this perfect roster, didn't matter because we didn't have it in the big game. And then they would probably be looking at Jalen Hurts being like, we need an upgrade.
Yeah.
That probably would how that would be the narrative right now if it went the other way, was you can't win with Jalen Hurts, right? And so that, again, talking about the sliding doors moment of like, the league could have been this one way, but now it's this other way. And that's just history. That's just stuff that when 10, 15, 20 years from now, when you look back and you just go, what was going on in the league at this time? It's stuff like that they're going to talk about, of that game changed sort of the direction of it. So that's it, man. That's, it sucks that it ended like that. People are asking me, what are you gonna do another future? Are you gonna, does this change anything for you? Listen, this is Diceshaker life. This is what it means, man, is you have to understand that every time we go do this, and this is what like, and like this was football is like, you can't have the win with it. Like, you can't have the joy without the heartbreak. Absolutely. You have to risk the heartbreak. That's what gambling is. That's what sports is. That's what, listen, you guys want to get philosophical? That's what kind of life is a little bit, is like, you have to take the risk. You have to risk looking stupid. You have to risk being wrong. And like, the reason I can win 60% of the games that I bet on this year is because I'm not afraid to lose them. I don't like losing. I hate losing. I do everything I can. It keeps me up at night when I lose. I go those, like, when it got rough in college there at the beginning of the year, like, that was truly like ruining my days.
Absolutely.
Like, honestly, but I'm not afraid of it. I'm not scared of it. And that would be my one message to everybody at home, is that if you are going to do this and you want to bet games and you want to be the part, you want the win, you want the victory, you want the joy, you have to risk the heartbreak, and the heartbreak will happen. And you just have to deal with it. You have to embrace it. You have to go, listen, this is what it is right now. And the pride, what you get up out of bed in the morning is not like, oh, I'm gonna win. It goes, no matter what happens, win or loss, I'm coming back tomorrow.
Absolutely.
That's what it is. Resiliency.
Saw it all year in college. Saturday you'd lose. Sunday you come out and shoot a 60% of the year.
You have to.
Every weekend.
Listen, man, that's the old Kobe thing. It's like, I'd rather go 0 for 30 than 0 for 9, because 0 for 9 means you lost confidence.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. So that's it, man. That is the 2024-25 NFL season. The whole football season is over. It has been a hell of a journey all the way back from the second to last week of August till now. Hundreds of games, hundreds of bets, ups, downs, haters, losers. Some fans, listen, I've been accused of acting like everybody who follows me hates me, and I know that's not the case.
That's what keeps them up in the morning. That's what gets them up in the morning. You gotta understand,
if you are in my corner, that we love the hate. Like if you're like, oh, I like Jordan and I'm with the Diceshaker and I'm a fan of his, I support him. That's great. Welcome to the team. You got to understand that you got to be focused on the haters too, because that's what this is, a spite, hate-filled podcast or fueled podcast. That's what keeps us out of bed in the morning. If everybody thought I was the man and everybody was like, yeah, everything he says is right, then I don't know if I'd do this.
What's the point, then?
Exactly.
What's
exactly.
the point?
I appreciate the haters. So the haters and the fans and everybody is appreciated. Thank you for following, subscribing, everything. We are going to continue to do this show throughout the offseason. We're not going to take a 6-month break and come back. We got stuff for you guys. Every week we're putting out an episode. We're going to have clips coming out. We're going to be on Spotify. We're going to be on Apple Music. We are going on YouTube.
We're really just ramping it up at
TikTok.
this point.
Exactly.
Honestly,
yeah, exactly. We are not. This is now an opportunity for us to sort of take this podcast to another level. We're going to have Tyler much more involved in content coming into the off season. Now we've got some great stuff planned with that. In fact, I want to talk about it a little bit, not specifically, but just generally right now about. So everybody knows me. And my fandom is important to me in terms of I have a favorite team in all of the sports that I cheer for. I've been a fan of all of those teams to varying degrees. Like not all of my favorite teams are on the same level, but it's a core element of how I watch and enjoy sports. Like I can't not have a favorite team. And I'll let you speak for yourself here. Yeah. You don't really have a favorite team in any sport.
No. As soon as I got into gambling, that's kind of when it went out the window. Like my dad was a big fan of the 49ers growing up.
Right.
So, I watched them. Now it kind of grew out of it. Wasn't really that interested in it. Like other things in life come up or whatever. I just started gambling. And then I was like, whatever team I'm betting on, that's my team. Right. In that specific moment.
Right.
But having said that, like you said, we're going to start with college. We're going to start college, and we do have a front runner at the moment, at least for a favorite player, and that's Jack Sawyer. Oh, and you remember exactly why?
Yeah, no, listen,
because he took that back to the house. The Oregon Ohio State game.
Oregon Ohio State,
and like I'm not saying like that's it, but that was the reason. That was one of those moments where I was just like, I could see myself like killing for this man, because we did that bet was all over the place all night, and then he just sealed the deal with that. And then you know what I mean? Like I'll never forget that moment.
Yeah,
and that's the kind of thing. So we're definitely gonna, like I said, we're gonna make the bracket.
Yeah,
we're gonna kind of like just kind of sift through like who's my favorite team, why would they be the favorite team. Then we're gonna follow them, and we're gonna have a little bit more fandom in that.
And so I think just an interesting point about fandom. I think the reason why we would want to start with college is listen, and I've said this to people before, it's hard as an adult to become a fan of a team. Well, listen, fandom is all about like, it's just about, you get what you put in. So like the way I evaluate like a fan, right? When people are like, oh, like who's a diehard casual, rules about fandom. There are certain things that I think are important for fans, which are like on its face dumb. Like if you were just an outside person, it would be like, yeah, like I don't like, it's all silly. We're all like the idea of like cheering for a team is a dumb, childish thing. So just let people do it however they want to do that. Totally understand that. But as somebody who has done it a certain way, like the way to there's certain things you must do to have to build the strongest connection possible to teams. That's really what it is, right? When you look at like me and the Titans, right? And like that's probably not a great example because like I wish it didn't happen, but like there's now like I cannot cheer for another team, and not like I can't like morally do it. Like I couldn't actually do it. Like my brain and my whole life is built around the Titans. And so in order to get that type of connection with the team, number one, it helps if you start when you're a kid. But if not, then it's like you can't, whatever team you start to cheer for, you can never cheer. Like when a team is picked, that is a lifetime decision.
Yep.
I do not care you win, and like both ways. You win the next 7 Super Bowls, and I don't want anybody to talk shit because it's like, no, because it's like I'm in this for life. So it's ups and downs, right? If they lose 1 million games, that's it. There's no changing. I don't care what happens. There's no changing. There's no 2 teams. I can't stand that when people say that. They're like, oh, this is my second team.
Like a backup plan?
This is my second team? Yeah. It's like, who raised you?
Yeah.
Like, do you not have any loyalty? Do you not have any honor? Like, do you not, like, we wake up in the morning, how do you not hate yourself when you're like, oh, yeah, like, the whole thing is you have to be all in on one team. So that's the only rules, is that once we pick the team, that's the team forever. We can't change it no matter what.
Yep.
I think college will be easier to build a connection with the team and the school later in life because college is on its face irrational. College football and college sports is not, like, none of it really makes any sense. And so it'll be easier, I think, for you to, and again, right, we talked about this before too, about like an important part of sports is hatred, right? And so like you can almost build a connection, like say it is Ohio State. Like, yeah, like you like they just won the national championship.
I don't know if it's Ohio State. That's
right,
just
but let's say it is. Let's say it is. Let's say it is. So let's say it's Ohio State. And it's like they just won the national championship. And like you weren't there for the trials and tribulations before that of like the 3 straight losses to Michigan and the Jim Tressel era and all that stuff. You don't have any of that. The way you can link yourself with Ohio State, like your own like emotional like investment is by hating Michigan.
Sure.
It's just outright, just prey on Michigan's downfall. And Michigan's, not that we're going to do, Michigan's a very hateable school. Like, they are some of the worst people in the world. Like, just pompous, rich, bored on third base, jackass people, generally Michigan people. And so, if you can just get that sort of hatred into you, I think that'll really help build the connection. That'll be one of the things that we pitch on each team is like, okay, like who do they hate? Is that a team that's easy to hate? You know, like that'll be part of the criteria. So we're gonna do stuff like that this offseason. I ideally would like to get tied like I have a favorite baseball team, hockey team, college football, NFL, like all of that. So I would ideally, I think, like we'll start with college. I think we need to get an NBA team. I think is probably probably.
Well, no, I have a favorite NBA team though. I've been a Portland fan for a while.
When was the last Portland game you watched?
This year?
Yeah,
none. It's awful. I mean, the NBA is a tough time to watch.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, that's fair. And you know what? That is kind of respect to the rules.
Right?
That is kind of respect to the rules of like at one point you did kind of pick Portland.
I did a while. So, that's what I mean. A while ago.
Yeah, so that's kind of a hand up moment of like I did pick them, and so I have to go back to them.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So that's done. Kyle's a Portland fan. We just nailed that. Yeah. All right. We're going to wrap this up. We're going on too long, but that's kind of the plan for the offseason. We're going to bring you guys a whole bunch of stuff. So continue to like, continue to subscribe, continue to tell your friends. And thank you guys all for being with us this far, and we will see you next time.
I bet my life I'm a dice shaker. Electric lights on a skyscraper.